What's up, my friends? Welcome to New View Tech Review. My name is David Gelly, and today we're going to talk about the September 2017 Apple Keynote. First up on the chopping block, Apple unveiled the Apple Watch Series 3. You'll now be able to call and text friends independently from your phone thanks to the new hardware that supports LTE connectivity. With the addition of LTE, you can now stream Apple Music directly from your watch and wirelessly pair AirPods for on-the-go situations, which is pretty sweet. Aesthetically, the watch is unchanged from previous models except for the crown on the side of the watch, which is now red. The Apple Watch is set to be released this Friday, September 22nd. Next up, Apple announced the Apple TV 4K, which is exactly as the name describes. You will be able to stream 4K HDR content for better viewing quality. That is, if your internet will keep up. Unfortunately, there were no other significant updates to the Apple TV that are worth mentioning. And of course, we got to talk about those new phones. 3 new phones, that is. The iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and the iPhone X. Starting with the displays of the iPhone 8 and the 8 Plus, we are looking at a screen size of 4.7 inches and 5.5 inches, both being LCD. As for pixel density, the iPhone 8 will come in at 326 ppi and the 8 Plus at 401, which stands unchanged from last year's models. The back panel on both models have been changed to an oleophobic coated glass that's supposed to be incredibly strong, but we'll see. The oleophobic coating is supposed to help reduce fingerprints and smudges. Once again, we'll see. Now that Apple has decided to use glass again, we finally get to have an iPhone with wireless charging, even if they're late to the game. The housing will be IP67 water and dust resistant to keep your phone safe from any accidental drops into puddles or sand at the beach. And for those of you who love your clicky home buttons, rest assured it's staying put until Apple decides to be courageous again and remove even more features from their base models. As for audio, Apple's continuing their trend, or should I say HTC's trend, of placing stereo speakers on the top and bottom of each device. Apple claims that they are up to 25% louder and will have a deeper bass output, something I will definitely review and cover in my upcoming review of the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. And unfortunately, the headphone jack remains only in our memories. Rest in peace, headphone jack. Rest in peace. Under the hood, both devices, in typical Apple fashion, have been upgraded to the A11 Bionic CPU, which is, of course, the most powerful and smartest chip ever in a smartphone. But I guarantee you we will see some pretty nice benchmark scores from these guys once released to the tech nerds of the world. With the addition of the A11 chip, Apple introduces augmented reality features into their new lineup, something that could definitely be interesting to use at a sporting event or while walking around the city trying to find a restaurant with good reviews. Battery, something we are all dying for more of, we now have less of. Both the models now have smaller batteries than last year's models, but thanks to software optimization, we can expect about the same screen on time as the 7 and 7 Plus. Something that Apple didn't mention in the keynote is that the new devices will now be capable of fast charging, but at the expense of the consumer having to purchase a separate charger. Of course, Apple. Of course you would. Cameras remain pretty much unchanged from the 7 and 7 Plus, but we will have the addition of portrait lighting, which will give your photos of choice a more professional studio look. Both the 8 and 8 Plus will come in space gray, silver, and gold, with no blush gold as was previously rumored. Storage will start out at 64 gigabytes, and then for a whopping $150 more, you can get your hands on the 256 gigabyte model. They will be available this Friday, September 22nd. Moving on to the exciting news of the event, Apple unveiled their 10-year anniversary phone, their one more thing, the iPhone X, or what other people are calling it, the iPhone X. My guess is that they're calling it the iPhone X as to not trip over their own feet once their base models reach the iPhone X following the 9S, but that's just my own speculation. The big difference between this model and the base models are found in the display. Less bezel and more screen, a trend that many other manufacturers have been implementing into their flagship devices over the course of 2017. The display has what Apple is calling a Super Retina display and is Apple's first entry into the OLED game. This will bring the PPI to 458, which I can only imagine will look gorgeous. It has a 5.8-inch display, making it larger than the 8 Pluses, but manages to have an overall smaller footprint than the Plus due to the removal of the home button and the bezels. Sorry, home button lovers, but this is probably the direction that Apple's headed in for future models. Speaking of the home button, iOS 11 will now feature a black bar on the bottom of the screen that you will now swipe up to get back to your home screen. Makes me wonder how this might impact simply scrolling down the screen, but we'll see. The power button has been increased in size as to make it a bit easier to reach for all you Siri users. Yes, the power button will now activate Siri. On the top of the display, we have the sensor housing, which holds many sensors including the 7 megapixel true depth front-facing camera and all the new Face ID sensors. Face ID, the killer of Touch ID, uses a dot projector to map your facial features, making it far more secure than Touch ID ever was. You will even be able to use this feature in the dark using an infrared sensor that accompanies all of the other sensors in the phone's unsightly forehead. Now Apple Pay will use this feature since Touch ID has been removed. As for battery, Apple claims that the iPhone X will last about 2 hours longer than that of the iPhone 7s, so nothing too impressive there. The camera will have pretty much the same specs as both 8 models, but will have dual OIS cameras on the back. Stereo speakers are present on this device, as well as augmented reality. Oh, and how dare I forget, we now have Animojis, a way for us to send animated emojis to our friends by using the phone's Face ID sensors to map out our facial expressions. Steve Jobs would be so proud. Storage for the iPhone X will come in 64 and 256 gigabyte models and will be available in space gray and silver color variants, but no gold for you gold lovers. So my overall thoughts on the iPhone 8 and the 8 Plus are that it's just not that big enough of a jump in design to really be worthy of the name change to iPhone 8 versus the iPhone 7s. And then what happens next year? Do they follow the same design, or do they move forward with the 8s and the iPhone X's body? I know, it's all very confusing. And as for the iPhone X, it's really pretty and I'm sure it's going to be really fast, but it's also really pricey for a phone with the same specs as most other flagships out there. And with Face ID being Apple's new big thing, I wish that they would just admit that implementing this feature was just due to the fact that they couldn't incorporate Touch ID into the display like they originally wanted to. But hey, innovation, right? I am curious to see how fast Face ID works, and judging by the keynote demos, it looks to be about as fast as the first generation of Touch ID was, which is still great, and I'm excited to test it out in my future review of this phone. Alright my friends, that's all I have for you today. Are you excited about the new iPhone lineup? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.